Well, we have a lot to talk about tonight. I brought my friend here for two reasons. Actually, this was planned before the world burned down over the last 48 hours, quite literally. My friend Peggy has been watching these broadcasts and she keeps saying, "What's that thing in the background?" And I guess she missed the earlier broadcast where we had Ginny from the Thanksgiving, but pardon me, it's ham, not turkey. So this is for Peggy to take a look. But then I decided I was gonna be reading stories because of the rioting and the looting and the protests and the systemic racism that has brought us to this point. And I thought I'd clarify that when I was growing up in the 60s, the slur for police officers was pigs. Kind of still is. And don't panic on either side anywhere. I am not going to sit here and defend horrific acts by police officers. I'm not. I'm not going to go off into smarmy land and talk about how we all need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. What I'm going to do, and this has taken a whole lot of thought, is I'm going to look through some columns that I wrote that have a pretty broad range. I've been a journalist for 32 years. And I know that when I was writing every one of these columns, I thought it was going to make a difference. I did, because we all think that what we do is going to change the world. And I thought this might help. Some of these might help with a little bit of perspective. So last night, by the way, hey Peggy. So last night, I got an interesting text that was almost funny, but kind of not, from a friend of mine who was saying, "Oh, where are you tonight? What do you do? Where are you?" I said, "I'm home." I said, did we miss you? I thought, miss me where? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Where am I supposed to be at night? And they said, well, the protests, and this is a friend who's affiliated with the local constabulary. So this friend was concerned for my health because they thought that with a protest of this magnitude, with a core issue that I have fought and defended and been with for decades, I surely must be dead to not be at that protest last night. But the reality is that it's still a pandemic, and I've been sick, and I don't want people to get sick. And so tonight is my form of protest, right here. I have, in the course of running the Norfolk Initiative for Chess Excellence, nice chess, and writing about race relations for the Christian Science Monitor, the New York Times, the Virginian Pilot, National Public Radio, engendered the rage of the Ku Klux Klan. On more than one occasion, they have put on their jackboots and they have marched themselves on over here and tried to intimidate me out of working with any person of color, whether it be children learning to play chess, police officers of color, homeless people, refugees. I apparently tick a lot of boxes and they're ticked off. And so I started looking through these, and good grief, I don't even know where to start with some of these, but I think I'm going to start with this one. It's from 2014. 2014 was quite the year. 2014, 2015. 2015, 2016, bad, all bad. Let's see if anybody remembers some of these, okay? So, and I know I'm going to take grief for this, but here we go. It's okay for whoever they are to stand out there at our capitals with guns And it's okay to hold up signs that say sacrifice the weak and Confederate flags and be racists, screaming and spitting in the faces of police officers. But Colin Kaepernick took a knee and people lost their marbles. I guess they must have forgotten about this story from December 1st of 2014. So let's get in the Wayback Machine, shall we? And here we go. NFL won't punish St. Louis Rams for a hands up, don't shoot protest. The St. Louis Police Union wants a punishment and apology for the hands up, don't shoot gesture by 5 players on the St. Louis Rams football team Sunday. The St. Louis Police Union has demanded that the St. Louis players who came out for Sunday's game in a hands up, don't shoot gesture be punished by the team and the NFL. But the NFL has thrown its hands up in its own gesture of resignation. We respect and understand the concerns of all individuals who have expressed views on this tragic situation, Brian McCarthy, Vice President of Communications for the National Football League, NFL, replied in an email when the NFL would be asked if the NFL would be stepping into the fray between the Rams and the St. Louis Police Officers Association. Calls to the Rams management were not returned. 5 Rams players, Trayvon Austin, Stedman Bailey, Kenny Britt, Chris Givens, and Jared Cook, made the gesture while coming onto the field before Sunday's game against the Oakland Raiders. Ferguson, where white police officer Darren Wilson shot and killed black teenager Michael Brown, is 12 miles from the Edward Jones Dome. Testimony from the St. Louis County Grand Jury shows that the majority of witnesses to the event, 16 to 29 of them, according to one analysis by PBS News, said that Brown had his hands up at the time of the shooting. In the wake of the unrest following a grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Wilson, emotions and tempers have boiled over in the streets during protests on social media. The hands up pose has been at times a protest touchstone and at others a flashpoint. The protest by the Rams players reminded some of Tommy Smith and John Carlos, the 2 American sprinters who made the Black Power salute atop the podium during the 1968 Summer Olympics. 1968 Summer Olympics. As the Christian Science Monitor wrote, at a time when African American activists are trying to resurrect the spirit of the civil rights era, the Rams pregame Sunday was only the smallest reminder of how those convulsive years swept onto Olympic podiums and into the ring. Rams wide receiver Kenny Britt told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that the gesture wasn't used as an indication that they were taking sides. Not at all, Britt told reporters. We just wanted to let the Ferguson community know that we support them. The Rams players made their statement on the field, and then the St. Louis Police Association had one of their own that included calling for punishment for the players and a full apology. The St. Louis Police Officers Association is profoundly disappointed with the members of the St. Louis Rams football team who chose to ignore the mountains of evidence released from the St. Louis grand jury this week and engage in a display that police officers around the nation found tasteless, offensive, and inflammatory. SLPOA business manager Jeff Rhodes said, now that the evidence is in and Officer Wilson's account has been verified by physical and ballistic evidence, as well as eyewitness testimony, which led to a grand jury to conclude that no probable cause existed that Wilson engaged in any wrongdoing, it's unthinkable that hometown athletes would so publicly perpetuate a narrative that has been disproven over and over again. The Police Association is protected under the First Amendment to the Constitution to express its opinion, and apparently had done so, said Peter Scheer, Executive Director of First Amendment Coalition. However, the Rams players are protected under that same amendment, he added. It's not an incitement to riot. It's a symbolic political protest. We need debate. This is an example of freedom of expression that the Constitution encourages. We must not seek to squash this, but rather welcome it as a non-violent expression, he said. Lori Stevens of Newbury, Mass. founder and principal consultant of Laws Communication, which assists the law enforcement professionals, said, "Police have really been through the mill here. They don't deserve this." Gesture made by the Rams. As for the Rams situation, what those players did is highly offensive and certainly didn't contribute anything helpful to an already tense situation. Stevens suggested that the St. Louis Rams had done damage to their Fraternal Order of Police fan base nationwide. This type of behavior has no place in the NFL football field, and those players should be ashamed of their behavior. I think the Rams, if nothing else, have lost a great deal of support among police all over North America. Doesn't the NFL fine players if they dance excessively in the end zone? However, Stevens added that the Ferguson police have not done themselves any favors. She adds, the police department's social media, it almost looks completely undirected. They don't seem to have any kind of strategy here. Frankly, right now, the best thing they can do is just stop talking. Stevens says, maybe just give it a rest and let everyone heal, and then come back to it with cooler heads. So, December 1st, 2014, football players made a peaceful protest, and everybody tried to squash them. Colin Kapernick made a peaceful protest. Everybody tried to squash him, and they did. And here we are, for all the people who keep direct messaging me about this. This story is from August 15th, 2014. I don't know if anybody remembers this one, but if they gunned me down, on Tumblr, pressing parents to take a second look. In the wake of an unarmed black teen being shot to death in Ferguson, Missouri, by a Ferguson, Missouri police officer, the Tumblr posting titled, "If They Gunned Me Down, Which Picture Would They Use?" is prompting young adults and parents to think about which images some media might cherry pick from their social media accounts to represent their character. The Abraham Lincoln quote, "If you look for bad in people, you're sure to find it," came to mind as I scanned the images on the site. The site presses parents to consider if some media would pick the image of their own child smiling in a cap and gown, or a picture right next to it of the same child showing visible tattoos, sticking out their tongue, or clad in a hoodie. Would the photo of a boy striking a stereotypical gangsta pose trump that of the same young man serving in his church? Sure, parents have to caution their children not to post something truly compromising online. However, at some point, they also might want to examine the fact that many people simply might want to look for the bad pictures in an effort to stereotype and color how others see someone. According to multiple reports, Michael Brown, 18, was unarmed on Saturday, August 9th, when a Ferguson police officer stopped him and a friend. What happened in the next few minutes is still under debate. But in the end, the unarmed black teen was shot between 8 and 10 times by the officer. The case immediately blew up into a miasma of racial issues, victim blaming, riots, and protests, as well as the issue of some social media's selection of questionable images of African American victims that portray them in a negative light over those that would show them as upstanding citizens. If They Gunned Me Down is not about making people think twice about which images to post online, but rather to admonish those who think the worst of someone based on one image chosen from many that could portray a negative stereotype. Companion tweets are on Twitter under the hashtag "For Those Who Have Been Gunned Down." To make their point, the site authors have published questionable images of people, in some cases making rude gestures at the camera, and in others holding alcoholic beverages or other substances. These images are set as a split screen with others of the same individual in graduation robes, professional attire, hugging their children, or wearing a military uniform. The site brings into question what images some media outlets might select in order to attract the most readers and viewers. One powerful example posted on the site is a pair of images of Dewan Tent, Trent of Columbus, Georgia, who is a former Miss Kentucky, who went on to compete in the Miss America pageant in 2011. In a split screen, we see her in a Halloween costume as American rapper Wiz Khalifa, with afro, fake tattoos on her neck, and wearing a hoodie on the left, and on the right in a polished updo and evening gown, as an example of the disparate images available of the same person. On her own blog, Miss Trent writes, I understand that the point of the pictures was to really get people thinking about the way Black people are targeted and portrayed by the media. I get that. What I don't get is how unfair it is that we have to feel that our jeans and hoodie are any less respectable than a graduation gown, suit, dress, or uniform. She adds on her site, at the end of the day, underneath the clothes, underneath our skin, we are human, and that is why we should be respected and treated as such. The site encourages us all to think about how often we may gravitate toward believing the worst about people based on how they appear in a single photo we see online. Only 2 weeks ago, I hesitated posting a sweet picture of my teen son and his girlfriend, in part because she had drawn flowers on his neck in green marker, a popular practice that regularly leaves me lecturing my son about how inappropriate it may look. Seeing the Tumblr site now makes me regret criticizing my son, especially about the innocent expression of teen love. While it's important to guard our online images, it's equally important that we challenge ourselves to embrace the best images of others and not judge people by one unguarded moment captured by the camera. Then perhaps we have more hope of not being judged ourselves. 2015. I don't even want to, I'm not going to make bets on what photos are being extracted from the social media of victims right now. But I will say in advance, for whoever it is that's destined to hit me up in a phone call or a direct message right after this and say to me, well, they do find the KKK pictures and the, Confederate flag photos and gun-toting pictures of protesters, and you judge them by that. Yes, I do. Next question. All right, let's get a little more lighthearted here, if we possibly can. And who would do that for us but Starbucks? Let's hop back into the Wayback Machine, March 17th, 2015. Starbucks had themselves an idea. Yes, they did. Yeah, big points if you think this one, whether this one was a pass or a fail. Why your Starbucks barista wants to talk to you about race relations. I did not make this up. This is not a joke. Hang in there. This week, Starbucks patrons in line for coffee find themselves waiting for an impromptu discussion on race relations to take place between barista and fellow patrons as part of the new Race Together social awareness campaign initiated by CEO Howard Schultz. Okay, Mr. Schultz. The idea is for a barista to write Race Together on a customer's cup and then engage that customer in a dialogue about race relations in America. When did you first become aware of your race? Is one question a barista may ask a patron who is interested in starting one of these free-range organic dialogues, according to Starbucks spokesman Linda Mills in a phone interview. This is not the first Starbucks political or social initiative. In 2011, amid a struggling U.S. economy, the company held a campaign to create jobs for USA Fund, selling red, white, and blue woven bracelets with metal clips that read, "Indivisible," In 2012, during the debt ceiling negotiations, Starbucks had the first Come Together campaign, and for 3 days, baristas in Washington, D.C. wrote Come Together on customers' cups. During the 2013 political budget crisis, a second Come Together campaign was announced, and the company began offering a free tall drink for any customer that bought one for someone else. And in September 2013, Schultz wrote an open letter saying that guns were no longer welcome in Starbucks stores or outdoor seating areas. Okay. The latest Starbucks initiative emerged from a series of open forums held over the past 3 months, where more than 2,000 Starbucks employees discussed racial issues in Oakland, Los Angeles, St. Louis, New York, and Chicago. According to Ms. Mills, the participation in the campaign began with those locations last Friday and is slowly rolling out in all 7,000 corporate stores with voluntary participation in the company's 4,000 licensed locations. I guess you know how this is going to turn out, right? You know where this is going? Well, let's find out. As racially charged tragedies unfold in communities across the country, the chairman and CEO of Starbucks didn't remain a silent bystander. Howard Schultz, spoiler alert, who is white and a billionaire. Howard Schultz voiced his concerns with partners, employees in the company's Seattle headquarters and started a discussion about race in America. Schultz said in a video statement, "If a customer doesn't want that written on their cup, then we offer them another beverage." Now, some of you may be uncomfortable doing this, and if you are, you have no mandate for me to do it. Just bow out. You don't have to do it. How long do you think I could discuss? So then Twitter, Black Twitter, which was in its infancy at this point, began to let us know they were there. How long do you think I could discuss reparations in a Starbucks before everyone gets nervous and I get tasered? Hashtag race together from Spirit Equality. In stores, the campaign got off to a halting start Monday, according to managers and employees at 20 Starbucks locations phoned or visited in various states. Both corporate and licensed locations were apparently given a window between Monday and Wednesday to complete training and then began engaging patrons in dialogue on race relations. The campaign is wonderful, says marketing consultant Andrew Jensen of New Freedom, Pennsylvania. But my concern is it will cause slowness, and will that slowness be worth it? It may earn them some brownie bucks, but it may push some people away. For me, it would be worth it to open up a discussion, but some people might not want to wait in line that long. When asked about concerns over slower service, Starbucks spokesman Mills said, "Customer experience is a priority for us. Not everyone will feel like participating." Starbucks is probably gambling on a small percentage of patrons actually stopping to engage in a conversation about race relations, says Ms. Jensen. Engaging in social issues is always a gamble in business. Look at Chick-fil-A and its stance on homosexuality. While it can create an extremely fierce audience participation, that in itself can push people away from the brand, you think? Supervisor Catherine Bond, who works at Starbucks outlet at Old Dominion University campus in Norfolk, Virginia, had not heard anything about the race relations campaign, but she was enthusiastic about the concept. I think it's good to bring people's attention to what better way than through Starbucks, where so many people come together, said Ms. Bond. Shernay Valentine, a barista at the same location as Bond, was hesitant, saying, "The concept of race together is good, very good, but it's uncomfortable for some people to discuss. People just come in for their coffee, and it could get touchy with some people. I'd be really nervous about judging who I should ask." Ms. Valentine and other baristas will largely be on their own for how to reply, but we'll have a compendium of questions to offer by Friday. We want this to be a thoughtful, organic conversation taking place between the baristas and the patrons, Mills said. We hope the compendium works from partner barista to customer and customer to customer. Those who don't want to participate don't have to. Mike Demerinsky, owner of Fairgrounds Coffee, located across the street from a Starbucks location in Norfolk, said in an interview, race relations are a very important subject. I applaud anyone's efforts to start a dialogue. Mr. Demerinsky adds, I myself try to stay out of politics. I could risk losing half my business. I'm no expert on race relations, but people of all races drink coffee. Yep. I have 2 Starbucks baristas in the family. I'm going to read that to them later and with popcorn and watch their expressions. Yes, we do need discussions. Do we need them in Starbucks? No. And am I filibustering this? You betcha. Because did I go to the protest last night? No, I did not. We got 2 more to go. Oh, I know. You know, Michael Muhammad. And that's all I'm going to say. Death of a young black man in a Virginia prison sparks outrage. This one goes out to Miss Lana Presley, because this is how one of the ways I met her long ago and far away. And I cannot remember how to say this name correctly. Jamichael Mitchell allegedly stole $5 worth of junk food from a 7-Eleven. 4 months later, he was found dead in a jail cell. He's been in jail since April, arrested for allegedly stealing $5 worth of grocery, and now he's dead. Local activists are incensed over the death of Jamichael Mitchell, 24, in Portsmouth, Virginia, jail this week. Mr. Mitchell had a history of mental illness, said local paper, the Virginian Pilot, and he was being held awaiting transfer to a mental hospital. Mitchell's body was found at the Hampton Roads Regional Jail 4 months after he was charged with petty larceny and trespassing. Portsmouth police arrested Mr. Mitchell on April 22nd after he allegedly stole about $5 worth of food from the 7-Eleven, a candy bar, a snack cake, and a soda. Portsmouth police and Hampton Roads Regional Jail failed to respond to requests for information on this case. According to the Virginian Pilot, a judge had found the apparently bipolar Mitchell incompetent to stand trial on May 21st and ordered him into the care of, quote, qualified staff at a mental hospital in Williamsburg, about an hour away, mental facility. For the past 3 months, Mitchell has remained in jail waiting for a bed to become available. He was found unresponsive in his cell at about 5:45 a.m. local time on Wednesday, August 19th, and he was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. His body failed, his aunt told the British newspaper The Guardian, saying that he had lost some 65 pounds while on a hunger strike there. The official cause of death is still under investigation by the state medical examiner. Master Jail Officer Natasha Perry told the Associated Press that he died of natural causes. This is what happens when we jail folks for petty crimes and not aggressively seek the next step in the existing mental health system, wrote Lana Presley, founder of the Four Rivers Project, which works to restore the civil rights of former inmates in Virginia. Who dropped the ball? Who didn't make the call? Who will bear the blame? She asks. In an interview, she says, they say that there is no bed at the mental health facility. Okay, so how about the next day and the day after that? You see a man wasting away in front of your eyes, and you can't find your humanity long enough to make a phone call, a call to his family, call a mental health professional, do something. If his mental health was really the issue, then somebody needed to be on that continuously. He needed to be in a hospital from the very start, not a jail cell, says Ms. Presley, who is also the president of a local civic league. Local activist and former candidate for mayor of neighboring Norfolk, Virginia, Michael J. Muhammad, told the Monitor that he agrees that Mitchell should not have been jailed over the alleged petty crime. Two issues are at play, he says: race and the failing mental health infrastructure. What we're finding is that a young man who is accused of a crime that did not exceed $5 is being held for 4 months, he says. We're also seeing that white people are not being charged in the same way as black people in the communities here. White people are given passes or bonds for the same crimes. He describes another young man of color. He says has been in jail for over a year, which has exceeded the time he would have served for the crime because he suffers from mental illness, Muhammad says. When a person is found to be mentally unstable or incompetent to stand trial, the proceeding process stops. But they are still held in the process as if they're being punished, Muhammad says. Mental illness should not result in punishment. It should result in services. If we charge ranchers and pet owners with animal neglect for letting their animals waste away, said Muhammad, what should be the process for a human being? Surely the jail personnel, the sheriff, the people in charge of that jail should have been aware that the young man's situation had become extremely dire. Presley agrees about the role of systemic racism, saying, this is not a black issue. This is a humanity issue. Somebody needed to find their humanity and look after that young man, she says. Where are we as a society when a young man is so hungry he steals food to survive and then he dies in a jail cell of hunger? So for the last 10 years, I have been on a mission. And the mission is to take police officers, sheriff's officers, judges, anyone involved in the legal system, and put them across a chessboard from men, women, and children of color. Because the children that I have worked with and their parents and their aunties and their grandparents and their friends and their cousins have told me time and time and time again that they're afraid of police officers. Doesn't matter the color of the skin of that police officer, it's the uniform. Okay? And so police officers in the city of Norfolk have responded. And our sheriff's department here in Norfolk has responded. That last story was Portsmouth. And I think it's mission critical that we recognize that last night, when this country was being burnt to the ground, city by city by city, the city of Norfolk saw 600 demonstrators in a city with a mayor of color, a police chief of color, police officers of color, of the LGBTQ community, a broad, diverse community of people. And there was a mutual respect that happened here last night. And our city didn't burn down. Our stores downtown weren't smashed and looted. Because for years now, we've been building, we've been listening, we've been trying on so many levels. Chess is just a tiny part of it, right? But it works. I know it works because I've seen it work. I know it works because I've been in Lambert's Point, in Park Place, and all over the place. Near Booker T, everywhere, okay? Larchmont, downtown, Ocean View. And I have run into officers and children from the program and adults from the program. All of my chess players, whether they're wearing a badge or not. And I've had them come to me, and I had the children say, if they heard about something like riots, if they heard about protests, on Wednesday, you can bet the farm on this. Those little children and their aunties and grandmas and dads and mom, everybody is going to be asking, how's Officer so-and-so? How's he doing? How's she doing? Were they okay? We saw this on the news. We're worried about them. That didn't happen 10 years ago. It didn't. And it happens now, not because there's any magical formula, not because we have scripted anything. It's because everybody has taken the time to sit down together, play a game together as allies and as competitors, combatants. It's a classic thing, chess. It builds critical thinking, which we need a whole lot more of, particularly in government right now. Sorry, my 2 cents. But if one person can do something so horrible that it can result in the whole country being on fire, then one person can sit across a chessboard from one child and make a difference that's going to spread exponentially. Because today, officers who for the last 10 years, when they're on duty, when they're off duty, no matter what it is, if there's a situation and if that's a Caucasian officer and they see a child of color in any of these neighborhoods now, I promise you that those officers are looking to see who they know. They're there to see who they can help. And I know that there are lots of good officers who are there doing that long before I ever showed up or our program did. But it's there. It's a mechanism. The kids recognize the police. They don't run away from them. If somebody's hurt, they'll go ask them for help, which didn't happen before. If somebody was in danger, they wouldn't run to a police officer. They'd run away because there was no trust. But a funny thing happens when you learn to trust one person. You start to trust other people that remind you of that person. So if that starts to happen, and if we can put that back into play, I've been talking to my friend at the police department about how we can make this happen. So we're working on starting a Zoom chess program. It's going to be nice chess again. But we're going to start with some special sessions. And I'm going to invite the mayor, who said he will come. He said that many times, and he has. And we need to build the bridge every time, okay? Been building the bridge for 10 years. Somebody burns it down. You don't give up and say, well, we're never going to cross that. We're never going to get to the other side. No, you build another bridge. In the same place, downstream, upstream, bigger bridge, taller bridge, more durable bridge. Bridges are going to get burned. People have decades of fear and anger in them, and it's all spilling over right now. And if you're an ally, be an ally. Don't judge by the picture that the news puts up there. Okay? Think of the pictures that you've put on social media or your friends have. Take a look tonight. See if anything on there got used instead of your LinkedIn. I'm not telling you take down the bad ones. I'm telling you think of other people and how they get portrayed. Don't believe the first thing you hear. Don't believe the second thing you hear. Do research. Have compassion. We're going to get through this. But it's not going to be pretty. And it's not going to be easy. And we can look at all these stories from 2014, 2015, 2016 in despair. Or we can remember that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Still, big arc. I love you all. Tomorrow night, we're going to have something happier. Much happier. If I have to write something, I will have something happy tomorrow night. But tonight was just one of those deals. It had to be said. Thank you so much for being here. Aaron, it's really good to see you. Omar, Peggy. See you tomorrow night, I hope.